Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another social studies, motivational, maybe depressing, answering question kind of video. If you like the videos, like, sub, silly comments, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks, Super Chat, PayPal, Patreon, whatever. I think you got less than a week till my birthday, so you guys better donate something. Support the channel. Anyway, I got asked this question a few times, so I guess we'll answer it today. To expand on my last comment, Clayton, I was wondering how you keep going, like getting out of bed every day and stuff. You got a lot going on physically and mentally, so I wonder what makes you wake up the next day. Wow, you really like the depressing questions, don't you? Well, we will be joined by the well, what a peaceful picture of Pikachu I drew. He's very reflective on life. There's Pikachu with a picture would be sick. You know, I've said this many times before, dude. Your perspective, dude, is the most important thing in life, right? Now, whether that comes from a positive place or a negative place is up to you, but it has to be a perspective that keeps you going, right? And a lot of people, maybe they tell themselves lies to keep themselves going. Like, let's say if we're not just talking about a health thing, look at that recent, or if we're talking about video game shit, look at the lies people tell about me in the video game community, right? All these terrible stories just totally made up, right? That's a lie that people tell themselves to keep themselves going. I saw these images recently. Let's look at something like this. We could show this, right? We have, let's get my head out of there. All these dudes talking about how amazing I am. Remember, nobody can beat me, which I don't know why that guy says 50 to 1. Pretty sure I beat those guys. I've told that story every time. 50 to nothing. And then after I'd get to about 50 to nothing, I'd just be like, thanks for inviting me over. To be honest, I never remember losing to those guys. You got guys like Dennis there, who's obviously a stalker of mine, jokes about me dying, but I'm the one that found everything. You know, you got Jay there. I don't know if Jay wanted me to have sex with him and his girlfriend at the same time. Now they hate me. You know what I mean? But remember, all these dudes back in the day, they would openly talk about how I beat everybody. Like, it's not a joke when I talk about that back in the day on disability. I went to a tournament one time before. It was in Pittsburgh, right? And I showed up and they canceled the entire tournament, right? That's how bad I used to beat people, right? But now, if you look at this, look at this. Now, oh, we're just going to give credit to Ein for everything because Dennis found out I'm not gay and I don't want to have sex with him. I must be evil now. Dennis now jokes about me dying, how funny it was leaving me for dead, right? These are examples of, people telling themselves a lie to keep themselves going, right? But that lie is a perspective, right? So many people in the video game community, unfortunately for me, they've told many terrible and many evil things about me. But that is what keeps them going. That is the perspective that keeps them going, right? Even if it's completely made up, it's delusional, it's a fantasy, right? That's what keeps them going, right? It's a pretty negative thing, right? And for me personally, geez, I am sick all the time. You look at this image, geez, this is what over, God, over, man, it's old. It's funny. I've been dealing with health stuff. I've been on disability longer than most people. Well, I don't know how old everyone is that watches my channel, right? But I've been on disability longer than a lot of people probably have been alive that watch my channel, going through life or death stuff. And I'm not one of those people that was lucky enough not that anyone else that gets sick is lucky, but when I say lucky in terms of maybe some people get cancer, let's say, and then, it's healed, they get better, right? I developed all these permanent side effects after radiation, right? I am still messed up to this day from everything, right? Geez, it's almost been 20 years since I was just dying, period. My doctor's giving me my will. That was in, geez, the anniversary of that will be in, July, right? But I mean, I've been sick for a very, very long time. And yes, it is very, very hard. It's only getting harder. I'm so tired. Even when I went out for a walk today, I have to take multiple breaks because I just get fatigued so easily. it's no, it's not easy being sick, but how do you keep going? What are you going to do? Just let myself die? What am I going to do? Oh, I could force myself to go for a walk, or I could stay inside and go on the internet all day. I'm already at home enough. I'm already sick in bed all the time. I'm already on the internet enough. If I can force myself to go out for a walk, even if I have to take many breaks, I'm going to go for that walk, even if it helps me be a little bit social, right? You know, you might say, oh, you're mentally. Is it depressing being sick? I mean, certainly it's defeating. It's not good. Again, I've been on disability longer than probably a lot of people that even watch my channel. Even if we're to correlate it or relate to video game stuff, I recently made, or I made, well, I guess I did make, but I put in those, I may put up some Marvel stuff, right? And so I had to record it again. And I'm telling you, dude, my hands are so far gone. Even just putting, the game in for a little bit, obviously these controllers are fucked up and I need a new converter, all that kind of stuff. But even just like doing a few minutes of games is so taxing on my hands, right? I don't want to have surgery again. Nerve damage completely. I didn't even realize that you can dislocate your nerves. Apparently, you can dislocate your nerves. No wonder I'm in so much pain, right? Pinched nerve down my neck, had that bad fall down the stairs. And this is after I had surgery all those years ago, right? So, I mean, even that is kind of depressing to think because, when I think about, these images that I showed earlier, right, of, video game people, oh, nobody can beat Clayton, Clayton's so awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then now I just hear people make up lies. Oh, the tournaments Clayton won were fake, or, oh, Clayton's not that good. Oh, wait, you mean when I hadn't played for years and I signed on and I beat all you guys again without practice? Oh, don't talk about that. Oh, all the tech, find all this stuff more than everybody else, blah, 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 So, I mean, that's kind of depressing to think that, there's not many opportunities left. Like, if I ever do sign on and play, like my hands are so far gone, I feel like there's not many opportunities left to even prove that I'm better than people, right? And that's not me saying that I'm better than everyone else in terms of like jacking myself off, because again, I've said before, I don't consider myself a competitive player. I feel lucky that I've been able to win. But it is a fact that I have done well for myself competitively, despite not considering myself a competitive player, whenever I have played, quotation marks, competitively, if you could even call it that anymore, when I randomly sign on or randomly went to those gatherings and beat all those dudes 50-0 every single time, no practice, right? But, still, I feel lucky that I've been able to do that, but it's still a fact. It's a fact, right? But that's depressing to think that, man, there's not going to be many more opportunities for that with the way, my health is going, right? Because I barely play games at all, apparatus, problems, and, it's not getting any easier. My health isn't getting any better. And any energy I have to use to be healthy. Being depressed is a extravagant luxury when you have real problems, right? Being depressed is maybe you get mad at me saying this. Being depressed is a extravagant luxury. How many people watching my channel actually have a real health problem, not a made up health problem in their brain, like Charmander talking about all this stuff recently? You know what I mean? Or any of these other people in the video game community have like, grudge against me for beating them when I was a kid, even though I said I feel lucky that I've won, but when you get told you're going to die, and if you're being honest, and if I'm being honest, it's probably, you look at my health record and I think about it sometimes and I'm like, I probably would be dead if I did not keep myself so healthy at this point, right? Because it is things aren't good, and it's getting harder and harder to do stuff as I get older and older. I try to keep myself healthy, and, maybe on the outside, maybe I don't look as sick as I am, but, the inside is, I say it's something like, I try to keep the outside of the castle strong, because if you break inside of the castle, there's nothing holding me up. When I get sick, I'm really fucked up, right? Like, things aren't good. Even now, I don't know how sick I look. Again, I went for a walk today. I was taking a break pretty much every half hour. Every half hour, I went for a walk, or every half hour. Is that correct? Yeah, every half hour. I had to sit down, take a break, because my health is not good, dude. My body is, things aren't good, right? You know, to look the way that I do, to even still be alive, right? My main hobby, quotation marks, the most important thing in my life is being healthy. And that sucks. Being healthy isn't fun. I've never been drunk before. I've never done drugs before, unless you count weed, as a stoner before, right? And even when I got like my weed card so many years ago, I was like, this is pointless, because why would I trade a little bit less pain for being more tired? I would rather take a little bit of pain, but not being as tired, and just work through the pain, because I need any energy I have to do stuff, to keep myself healthy, right? So no, it sucks. And, it's funny because some people, oh, you get to travel, all this kind of stuff. Do you actually look at what I'm doing when I'm traveling? I just might go for a walk. I don't party. I don't do drugs. Never been drunk. I'm still sick when I'm in another country. I hate to break it to you again. Some people, they have these like fake illnesses that they make up, like, oh, I'm depressed. Again, an extravagant luxury, whatever. Oh, maybe if I'm in another country, oh, I'm suddenly not sick anymore. I'm partying all the time, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not what happens when you're really sick, dude. I'm still sick all the time, even when I travel. It sucks. Again, I've gone to Japan, just been sick weeks straight. Can't get out of bed, basically, right? I mean, that's life of a sick person. But guess what? I don't have the luxury to be depressed about it. Certainly, I feel very defeated about, very, very, very defeated about, life, right? I've been sick for a very long time now, right? But you can only dwell on things for so long, right? And, the perspective, it comes from a negative place or a positive place. I've always said this before, maybe the reason that I'm still around and my perspective is, you got to remember, I got sick so early in my life. I told that story, I think it was about a year ago or something. I was talking to some other cancer dudes. We're just in there. We're like both getting our scans. And, he was an older guy, and he was basically like, you know what? I'm just ready to die. I don't care anymore, but maybe the perspective is, he's like, I already lived a life. I'm old now. If I die, I die. I got sick very, very early, right? I didn't have much of a life even before I was sick. I've had a pretty, not like a movie bad life, but not a positive upbringing. I was abused, and I remember being scared, and life was not good growing up. Life still isn't good. Life sucks, to be honest with you. People, oh, you look how you look. You must be banging all these girls. When you're in and out of the hospital, your sex drive is not that high. Maybe that has kept me out of trouble. Maybe from one perspective, you're like, oh shit, it's awesome that I can still go out. And you're like, oh my God, I'm an old man now, I still have, high school girls want to fuck me. Is that cool? Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a nice compliment that young girls want to bang all the time. But I guess to keep me out of trouble, you could say God. If God existed, God was like, well, you're sick, Clayton. So when you're sick, you're just not that horny. It's just the way that it happens, So, don't get too jealous, But and of course, my upbringing, I've seen how petty people are. I've seen a girl can love you 1 minute, hate you the next, then love you. It's very petty. Makes you not really have a lot of respect for people when you see the way people treat you because of how you look, especially when you grew up unpopular, again. So my life, I even, an example of perspective might be, excuse me, say the story about my dad. It's at face value, just hearing the story, it's crazy. I had a dream my dad was going to die. He was shot, and it was so vivid and real to me as a kid. I remember I went to my dad and I cried and I told him, no, you're going to die. You're going to die. And I like literally cried about it. I was so sure he was going to die and he told me no. And then he went and got a gun and he shot himself. That is a crazy story. Now, I didn't see him pull the trigger, but I saw the blood on the floor. You're like, oh my God. And again, that is to say that you told your dad he was going to die, and then right after that, he shot himself. Again, I didn't see him pull the trigger or anything. Maybe if I saw him pull the trigger, oh my God, boom, Jesus Christ. That probably would have been something, that would have been, who knows, that might have scarred me for life. Don't need to see that. But, I saw the blood on the floor, and I still remember exactly where it was. I'm visualizing it right now. Go up the stairs, there's a turn, and there was the door, and all blood outside of the door. But, I was sad when that happened, but, you get older, and I realized, my dad, he wasn't the most amazing dad. My dad was a swinger. My dad didn't want me. He didn't want my brothers, and then you're kind of like, oh yeah, that's life. We all make our choices, just like I was abused. Not like my mom cared about her boyfriends abusing me. Not like my mom wasn't abusive. It just so, what are you going to do? And so then, eventually I was not popular at school, beat up every day pretty much, And then I went through puberty. I got cool. All of a sudden people liked me. And maybe when I first got cool, quotation marks, I thought it was cool, but then I got sick. And I saw that, people didn't really care about me. Just like in video games, I did realize that I was good at games. And oh my God, people were actually pretty nice to me for a while. But then, I got sick and people started joking about me dying. Again, I didn't realize how bad it was at the time, which even looking at some of those images that I just showed recently, I think it's funny if you think that people think that it's me that has always posted about myself online or something like that. If I knew people like Dennis and all these other motherfuckers were joking about me dying for years, because remember, I wasn't checking this kind of stuff because I didn't know people were talking about me on that level until Dragon Ball FighterZ, which would have been 2018. If I knew all these people were saying the terrible things they were about me for years, why the fuck didn't I call them out in the first place? So I think that should be proof that, I think Clayton is the one that's actually posting himself online, all that kind of stuff. No. You know what I mean? Because if that was the case, I would have seen these motherfuckers lying about me, and I sure as fuck would have called them out right when it was fucking happening. But, excuse me, I digress, But, of course, yeah, no, so, oh my God, there's that one time the video game community liked me, And then all of a sudden, oh, geez, he's so sick. We're going to start lying about him, all that kind of stuff. Like I said, when I was dying, geez, you know how many people messaged me when I was dying? Not many, dude. No one really gave a fuck, dude. Like I said, I told the story that I remember APOC called me and, APOC, God bless APOC wherever he is. I'm not religious, but just saying, it's kind of a funny story. Like APOC is like, Clayton, I think you need more sun. Have you ever seen these like studies about people that get more sun, more vitamin D, and they heal? And it's just like, bro, APOC, Jason, things are a little bit more serious now than just needing a little bit more sun. Things are not good, dude. You know what I mean? But most people didn't give a fuck. And then, I became cool again. Oh, then girls like me. So it's like, maybe that happens once and you're like, oh, geez. Maybe you can try to like convince yourself that the perspective is, oh, okay, this is cool. But then when that kind of thing happens multiple times, you're like, oh, people just suck. You know what I mean? Just like I'm not like I don't have, or, oh my God, I'm getting confused English. Just like it's not like I'm not, oh my God, my English is getting confused. Like, okay, so like even now, right, I'm still in and out of the hospital. So, girl, maybe she'll like me not 1 minute. Oh, wait, you're sick. Oh, that's not cool. Oh, you're cool again. Oh, wait a second. Oh, you're not. Why don't you have so many followers on Instagram? Maybe there's something wrong with you. Oh, wait, you're in public and everyone likes you. Oh, I like you again. That kind of shit can only happen so many times before you're like, people suck. Oh, geez. There's no point of life, right? Like I need to do another video about relationships and realizing that sex really is the only thing that matters, I guess. How you guys are as a person doesn't matter, right? But your perspective is what keeps you going. And I'm not a religious person. So, you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to die. I don't think there's anything waiting for me. And even if there was anything waiting for me, I've said this before, why, if you think about like a more traditional sort of Christian belief, why, if I go to heaven, would I go to God and you have to ask God for forgiveness for all your sins or whatever? Why the fuck would I go to this omnipotent person and be like, God, please forgive me for anything bad I've done? Even though you've kept me in the hospital the majority of my life. I've had times where I've been so sick, I don't even know if I'll ever be able to masturbate again. Do you have any idea what it's like? I've had the most painful condition known to man, cluster headaches, where I just lose months of my life at a time. You know what I mean? I've had times all my hair's coming out, radiation. Oh my God. And even worse, I have people that say that I've lied about it and joke about it. You know, I mean, I don't think there's much for me. Like I said, dude, when my doctors were telling me I was dying, dude, I never even had that cliche moment of, oh man, I better call people and ask for forgiveness and be like, hey man, sorry I did that thing to you in school. You know, I just want to get that off my chest. I never even had a moment like that because I've never done anything in my life bad. You know what I mean? It's like, it actually makes me sound kind of boring to say that. I've never had a time in my life where I've been a bad person. I never even had that cliche opportunity to be like, opportunity. That's not even a good word, but I've never even had that opportunity to be like, damn, I got to apologize to someone. I'm just kind of like, man, that makes you kind of boring. Kind of does, but maybe if I was a bad person, or maybe if I was doing drugs or all that kind of stuff, or drunk, and, maybe my inhibitions were lessened or something, maybe I perhaps would have gotten into some more trouble or something. Right. But, if I did drugs and I was not keeping myself healthy, anyone can see my health record. I've never hidden anything. I'm still sick all the time. Just went for a walk today. I don't know how I look, but had to take a break pretty much every half hour. I feel terrible, but if I didn't keep myself healthy, I probably would be dead. I've been at the hospital for, especially those first, when it wasn't that long after my doctors originally told me, you could die. Here's your will. I told before, I think it might've been, I don't remember the exact year it would have been, but maybe about as a couple years after I was dying, something around that, maybe a few years after that. Right. And, I had a doctor that he couldn't even believe it. He was like, I cannot believe you're this person. And he's like, I was expecting you to look in such worse shape than you do. And he's like, I can't even believe you look like this with your health record. Right. And that was a few years after it, So, but that's why you got to be your own hero, dude. You could say maybe being a nerd has kept me alive, right? Because I grew up wanting to have a better life. I didn't want to be abused. I didn't want to be unpopular, be a nerd at school, But that gave me, I just didn't want to die. And, ultimately, I think, ultimately, I've said this before, I am going to die a sick person. I think there's not much I can do at this point. All right. So, again, your perspective keeps you going. Some people lie to themselves to keep them going. You just got to find a perspective that keeps you going. Right. I mean, just like, again, I showed the video game people. I mean, the perspective that keeps them going is they have no life besides video games. I always think it's so creepy to me when I randomly do catch a video game thing or something, because normally maybe I'll watch Super Turbo every now and then, but normally I don't watch tournaments, but every now and then it will come on and maybe we'll turn on for 5 minutes and I instantly get cringy, like feelings and like taken aback that I see all the same people that I remember as a kid and they don't have a life. Their whole life has been video games. And you can see that the perspective to keep them going must have been a lie. And has been a lie for many of the people, that have lied about me, so, but that's what keeps them going. So Dr. Wong or Dr. Wrong, I don't know what keeps you going, but it's going to be your perspective. And whether that's a positive, comes from a positive place or a negative place, that is up to you. But it's got to be a perspective that keeps you going at the end of the day. Anyway, if you like the videos, like, sub, silly, comment, share, support the channel if you can. I appreciate it. Thanks. The end.